And we're back with Survivor Hot Takes. It's me, Coach Drew. We're joined by Gideon from the Survivor Buffs. Gideon, when can we see you next?
Oh yeah, if you guys want to catch the next Survivor Buffs episode, make sure you check us out on Thursday where we're finishing up our tier rankings of the Survivor seasons. We're going from 31 to 40.
Spoiler alert, if you can. Are there going to be any Fs for
A
season
lot.
40? A lot of Fs.
Well, I mean, we'll have this one. We'll have the most Fs, right? Because we've only had one per season. We might have two.
In my opinion, I think I count one. Maybe
Adam's hardcore for two.
Okay. Well, then I am pretty sure I know what other season he's thinking.
Adam is hardcore wanting to put Edge and Island of the Idols back to back as Fs, and I'll try to fight for it, but I don't know if I can.
Do. Edge is probably like a CD.
I agree.
Survivor Buffs on Thursday where they finish off their tier rankings. But today we are discussing a season that is ranked, I believe, as a C on their
C
on their tier rankings right now. Survivor Marquesas. Now, I just want to preface this, everyone, by saying when Survivor Marquesas came out, I was going to my mom's hair salon a lot. And when the finale happened, anyone that's ever been to a hair salon understands there are a lot of black folk. And naturally, we were drawn to Vesepia. So when Vesepia won, I legitimately cried my eyes out. And it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me ever to that point at like 10, 11 years old. So understand that I am extremely biased when it comes to defending this season. If you guys can get past that, I hope that I can make other legitimate points to
You do back it up with claims. You do back it up with good claims.
Exactly. I just want to get my bias out there now so that no one says, oh, well, you're just clearly biased because of this. I'm like, well, yeah, true. Having said that, this, that, and the other. So, Gideon, opinions.
Okay, so when we ranked Survivor Marquesas as a season, I wanted to put it at a D. I don't think it's an F, but I didn't think it was a C. I think you wanted it to be a B. For a multitude of reasons. I just find it boring. I found the winner extremely boring, Vesepia, even though she did play a good game. If you judge it by the Survivor textbooks, she played an amazing game and definitely one of the better social players of all time. I'll say that much. I think she's the definition of a great social player. However, I just think the season as a whole, while it did have some high moments like the peeing and other things like that. And
someone to pee.
Yeah, that's a great moment. I'll say that. But overall, I just found the gameplay just a little dry, and for my taste, watching it from a perspective of somebody who's wasn't infatuated with strategy like I am now. I just found it kind of sluggish, and when I watched it back with my family, they felt the same way. I've actually gained a lot more respect for it talking to you and Adam, making me not absolutely despise it, but I still do think it's a bit of a drag.
Okay, cool. Like that. Let me ask you first, because you said that you thought that the gameplay was lacking. At what point in Survivor history, according to you, do you think that the gameplay picks up? Because if you think that
when the
what
flip
season
happened. When the
okay
flip.
I'm saying what season though, because if you really think about it, most of the early seasons of Survivor very much lack in like gameplay.
I agree,
where games come from.
I agree. But to make up for it, you had good personalities.
Okay.
And I don't think there was a lot of that on Marquesas.
Let's go to our personalities that we have here on Marquesas. Starting from the very first episode, where we have Crazy Peter, who they arrive. Muramu arrives on their beach, and Crazy Peter and Sean have this prayer moment, and we get I think Boston Rob's first confessional, where he's basically bashing them, what he does with everyone. And then
Fair.
Peter talks about being holy and all that, and he's talking about how he has holes in his body. And we get another classic Boston Rob confessional with that. So even Crazy Peter, who's the first boot of this season, has some type of character to him. Then yes, there are others like Gabe. Do you remember Gabe?
Hardly.
Okay.
I know the face. I don't
But then
know.
so Maramu, I would say the biggest characters were Peter, who was first boot, Boston Rob, Sean, and maybe Sarah. Not really though. So Boston Rob and Sean, hijacked the confessionals for that early Maramu tribe. On row 2, you have John. I would say John, Kathy are the two big characters on that side. But then you also have, as much as I'm not a fan of them, of one of them, Pascal and Nalia, who have this very. When people say that it's a Roger Elizabeth type relationship, I never got that vibe from that. Like, I thought Roger Elizabeth was adorable in Australia. Pascal and Nalia just gave me creep vibes the entire time.
Me too.
So, but they were still memorable characters from that season. Yes, the winner, if you were to rank everyone based off of character, the winner probably would be like ninth in terms of, oh, this person is this person. Vesepia was very much, like you said, a social player. When they get to that merge and Rob and Sean are just being dicks to everyone just because they figure they're on the outs, there's no way. And Rob's doing all his confessionals about, oh, I don't trust V because she's kissing ass and all this other stuff. It's like, yeah, of course she is. She wants to win. So all she has to do is work her way up the ladder while you guys chill here at the bottom. And when you guys get voted out, she will, she could potentially maneuver her way through the rest of the game. Turns out it didn't have to happen like that. Rob gets voted out, and then the first flip in the history of the show happens the next episode after that. And like we talked about in you guys' tier list, I think from there, that episode alone where the vote is flipped, yes, it does become kind of a slog for the next 2 or 3 episodes because it's very, very much a pagonging of the rest of the row 2-4. But once you hit that final 5, and you have Pascal and Aaliyah, Sean, Vesepia, and Kathy, and you have Pascal saying some very things, and and you have Kathy kind of stuck in the middle, and Vesepia and Sean are saying, hey, we have not always voted together. Like, we're not as close as Pascal and Aaliyah. Pascal and Aaliyah have straight up said every single time they will not vote for each other. Vesepia and Sean had at least proven that they are willing to vote against each other. So Kathy going to Pascal and Aaliyah's side, it led for some great television. And when Sean got voted out, he took it right on the nose or in the chin. He, it didn't seem like he was bitter about it. He was just like, all right, yeah, it was a great time. I'm out, blah, blah, blah. And then we have our first rock draw at Final 4 where Pascal falls, and it was amazing. And then we have the Final 3 where everyone's making cutting deals as we're going into the challenge. And I think the way it happened was Vesepia told Kathy that they were Final 2, and then they get to the challenge, and Kathy falls out, and Vesepia says, "Oh yeah, Nalia, just take me, and we'll go." And everyone demonized her on the interwebs, on the cesspool, as I called it last week, because she did a villainous act against America's sweetheart.
Okay.
I never understood the big time Kathy fandom. I thought she was cool. I thought she was great. But I never understood this whole robbed goddess thing that she has over her.
She definitely gets the fallen angel edit, but I don't know.
So, what aspects of the season do you find boring? This to the point where you would put it in a D category.
Okay. The Road to 4 and their control is just pretty repetitive. And while I think for me, the parts that I liked were Sean and Rob, and their banter was great. And really, I think as I think about this more and more, I think Nalia just rubs me the wrong way so hard, and it just
Seems like she
makes
rubbed the
me
jury the wrong way too.
it just made like every time that she had screen time, I would just cringe.
Did you think she was fake, or did you think she was genuinely
extremely fake? I think she was fake as fake can get, and I like she reminds me of like the girl in school who like puts on a face for the teacher and is like, yes, Miss Teacher, I'm your best friend, and then like cusses out the students in the back, like telling them that they're stupid. Like that's what she reminds me of. So I mean, I don't mind putting it as a C tier season. I can say it's average, but
Yeah.
Overall, I just think I think it had some good characters, and I definitely think it has the best gameplay until the Amazon. But
I mean, you're skipping over Thailand there, and it's like okay.
I am skipping over Thailand.
Yeah,
I think it has better gameplay.
Saying, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like, yeah, it didn't take us long to get to the next season with the next great gameplay.
Yeah, but you have 3 seasons where it's pretty straightforward.
True. Well, then, so let me ask you this then. I
did like the flip. I do like the flip.
Okay. So I think one of the things that people kind of shit on Marquesas for is, it's boring, it's a drag, blah blah blah. Borneo people always rank really high, and I understand that because it's the first. Fine. Australian Outback, I feel like people rank it high because it's had 8 returning cast members, so they have to. The weird thing is when we get to Africa, I feel like people still look at Africa as if it's better than Marquesas, when in reality, it's really not. Like when you look at the characters from Africa, you have Tom, Lex, and Ethan, and T-Bird. I also personally liked Kelly, but you're looking at it, and the gameplay is very straightforward, and there's no type of real, drama to any of.
And they're gassed. They're gassed
because they're literally dying in Africa.
Yeah,
and then you get to Marquesas where like something that's never happened before happens. So this is not on you. This is more on the fact that, okay, I understand people are going to hold Borneo and Australia very high.
Okay.
But Africa is where I feel like Africa is also held to a higher, held higher on people's list, even though personally I would probably put it as like a C or a D and have Marquesas above it because of that aspect of Marquesas actually has different gameplay from what we had seen in the previous 3 seasons. Am I making sense?
Yeah, and I think for me, like I enjoyed Marquesas a lot more the second time I watched it with my sister, and I think I'd like it even more the third time I watched it through. But I think it just came from a spot of I'm binging the show. I go through the first 3, which are good seasons in my opinion, especially 1 and 2. Then you get to 3 where it kind of becomes a drag, especially in the later half, except for the finale. It does kind of become a drag. I agree with you. And then I get there and I'm not gonna lie, like the edit. I don't want to say the editing seems like they couldn't put the story together, but I will say like it just had a different vibe than the other 3 seasons, and I just wasn't like messing with it as much. Okay. And it did just feel like a little bit of a drag, especially, and it does pick up, and it is very dramatic when Kathy goes home, and the swap is great, and the beginning is awesome because you have great moments. Like one of my favorite moments from Survivor period is the radio show. And then you have the first alpha male get taken out, which is great. um the more I talk to you, the more I like it, man. I hate you for that, but
So
I just
and I do want to touch on V's game for a second
okay.
because I already said that Marquesas is one of the most underrated. I think that Vesepi is probably one of the most underrated winners. And
Okay.
there are two big things that she did this season, not talking about her social game, which was great. The one thing was the journal, because
Yes.
she knew there was going to be that challenge. And she even gives the confessional where they're asking her if she knows someone's hometown. I think they were asking for where Patricia was from.
Mm-hmm.
And Vecepia is like, oh yeah, I think it starts with like this letter, and then she gives a confessional like, oh, I know exactly where she's from. I'm not going to tell them because I know if I lose this challenge, I'm not going to win. And it's like, yes, why didn't you guys show us more of that? Because yes, we do like seeing her be nice to everyone. Her prayer warrior thing is not as uncomfortable as South Pacific.
As yeah,
Uh,
amen.
it's actually kind of endearing. It's actually kind of endearing.
I see. I actually believe that she's religious.
Yes, yes. So she goes out and I think she swept that challenge. I don't think she got a question wrong. And then you go to that final three, which I touched on earlier, where she made a smart move and said, "Hey, Nalia, take me, and I'll drop off." And Nalia took her, and Kathy seemed very bitter at final tribal
Yes.
for that she was not going to get Kathy's vote. But I think when they got to that final tribal, and Aaliyah keeps sitting there saying, "Oh, I didn't start playing the game until like day 19." And it's like, what are you doing? So all Vesepi had to do is, yeah, I've had this shit planned. Shouldn't say shit, but I've had this planned from the beginning because of prayer and all this other stuff. And when I got here, I just wanted to be everyone's friend. And she's owning all of it. And a lot of the jury seemed like they were really coming after the two of them because of their religion. And Vesepi stuck to her guns and was like, yeah, I lied. I did all this stuff. And I have to answer to someone else. I don't have to answer to y'all. And I can, hopefully I'm forgiven. But this is, if you guys are going to hold this against me, that's on you. And I think because she what's the word? She embraced her game. She owned up to all the stuff. I think that's why she was able to pull it out, because she was not going to get Pascal's vote anyway. And then I still don't know why Zoe voted for Anilia, but I think that's what, because I think that jury was 6 original Rotu and 1 Maramu person, which was Sean. So
yeah, because the other people,
realistically, it should have been 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, the backstabbing happened, and the party lines get blurred.
Yeah, and it's funny, and I try not to touch on this too much, only because, but if you have to compare Vecepia to another winner, who would you
hard.
say? Okay, I mean, I put like her, Tommy, and Michelle all in the same group.
Yeah, but I say if I had to, it's like probably Tommy, just because Tommy was just such a social guy and like what else? But Vecepia won a challenge. Tommy didn't. So I guess maybe Natalie.
Natalie Anderson or Natalie White? Samoa or San Juan del Sur?
Yeah, no, it would. I'm trying to think of which one I would actually. It would actually probably be Natalie White. Just because she was a good social player.
Yeah. Oh, so the reason I put Vecepia with Tommy and Michelle is because everyone, for the most part, loved them. I think the only difference is Tommy and Michelle did not get chewed out at their final tribal as much as Vecepia did. Now I understand it was different.
Yeah, she didn't deserve that.
But Vecepia and Nalia were getting it, and it all kept coming back to their religion. And I'm sitting there, I was more religious as a child, But even now, as not as religious as it once was, it's still like, okay, why are they doing this? Why are they? They do realize this is a game, right? And that I'm
Yeah,
pretty
and
sure God
this,
will be all right if they lied within the realms of a game.
I mean, when did the jury finally realize that this was a game?
You mean in Survivor history or in this season?
Yeah, and Survivor history, because I mean, it seems like you have a lot of bitter juries, especially early on.
Yeah, I would say.
And I mean, at this point, there's not a lot of Survivor history that's already happened, and now the juries, they take things personally because, like, and this whole time, they're like, "Oh, like we're straight shooters, just play the game straight," and then like you're getting lied to by the people who are religious.
Religious, yeah. It's like, so let me ask you this, and this is
But
an
it's a part
opinion
of the
question.
game.
Do you think that if one or the other were, let's say they were just an atheist or just not, they didn't preach as much as they did, do you think that that person probably would have won if they were sitting next to someone that was religious? A person that doesn't have to hide under, the person that doesn't hide under the religion thing, because it seemed like the jury was very
I would think
focused
that
on that.
I mean, I would think that the jury would probably respect the atheists more because they're just not hiding behind religion.
I think so too, which is strange because that shouldn't have been where their aggression should have gone.
Okay.
If that makes sense, like they especially John is like, you guys both said that you're this, that, and the other, but you guys sat here and you're the two biggest liars out here. It's like,
it just seemed
true.
like that. It just seemed like that jury wanted to hit them where it hurt, and if they're both acting like they're religious, which I do believe Vesepia,
I do believe. Yeah, I do believe.
I
think Nalia is. I'm pretty sure she was a Mormon, which means that Mormons are just extremely nice people. I know Mormons. I know.
I know a good musical about Mormons.
Me too.
But yeah, no, I just think they wanted to hit him where it hurt, and if they're both like the prayer warrior religious, then that's exactly what they did to Coach, and they tore him apart, and they should have.
Well, and I think the other thing with Coach was
that he prayed to God while having the idol in his pocket.
Well, no, and he like reverted back to like old school Coach at Final Tribal, where he was preaching about loyalty and all this other stuff, and at that point, everyone's like, "What?"
Yeah,
because I do feel like he probably would have won if he had
a good Final Tribal.
Yeah, he just owned up to the stuff. But like the fact that he reverted back to Tocantins' Coach,
yeah, bad tactic.
In summation, I mean, Marquesas is in my top 23, so it's not like I think it's just the greatest season ever or anything.
That's respectable, and honestly, you're making me want to start going that direction. I just think the reason that me at the beginning, before I got to know you and Adam and actually became a Survivor analyst or whatever, and I'm still a baby Survivor analyst by all means, but I just think like it didn't flow like the other seasons, and like if you're watching it back to back to back to back and you're going through all 40 seasons, or you're just watching it as a whole, you don't respect the gameplay as much. And I think that Vesepia's game is underrated. And if I love UFC, if I had to compare Vesepia's game to somebody in the UFC, it'd probably be like Khabib, because people say Khabib's like the most boring. Yeah, people say he's boring, but he wins. All he does is win every time. And if you dropped all the Survivor winners onto an island and you had them play 100 times, Vesepia might be the one that wins the most, because I mean, at the end of the day, she does have the strategy that if I went on Survivor, I would want to emulate the most, is the controlling the votes, the way that you want them to be controlled, and being the good social player that you should be.
And that's why I do compare her to Michelle Fitzgerald, because Michelle has proven twice now that she knows how to get to the end.
Mhm.
she, even Michelle is different because she's not always on the right side of the votes,
Yeah.
but somehow she still manages to.
She's left out because they know how good she is.
Yes, and I love Michelle, and I know we'll I'll probably talk about this at some point about the whole Aubrey Michelle whatever the hell it is, because like I was a big Aubrey fan, but when Michelle won, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I
Once again,
wasn't.
it's just like, have you matured? It's the same thing. It's like, as I mature as a Survivor fan, I'm like, okay, like the things that have changed my opinion, like, oh, maybe Marquesas isn't that bad. Maybe Michelle actually deserved this. Maybe Redemption Island isn't a terrific season like I thought it was. It's like it's just a maturation thing, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll go with it. Because I as I grew up, I started to appreciate Rich's win more.
Yeah.
Let's say that. And as a kid,
Okay.
I thought he was the worst because
Mm-hmm.
he was a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
But
The
as I got
villain.
older, I'm like, wow, this guy was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where we're at right now with Marquesas. It looks like Gideon is coming up. I'm
I'm seeing the light slowly but surely. I still like, it's still not my like, I couldn't watch it if I was tired, but I
yeah.
could watch it.
Um so if you were to do the tier ranking again, would you actually put it as a C, or would you, because I know that because I said B and you said D, we averaged out to a C. Would you put it
If it
in a
was
C now?
just if it was just me, if I didn't have to put it at a D to make it a C, then yeah, I'd probably put. The more and more we talk about it, I would probably put it as a C, maybe a high C.
Show us the
Honestly,
success.
I actually like. I actually lately, and I hate this because like Ethan's about to sit. Me and Ethan have been talking a little bit, but I'm starting to like it a little more than Africa.
I won't say it.
Don't tell Ethan. Don't tell Ethan. I'm not gonna say anything. I don't think he's watching. So,
Well then, yes. Survivor Buffs is when,
Thursday,
and what are you guys doing again?
tier ranking from 31 to 40.
So everyone tune into that on Reality Pop. In conclusion, I guess, if you haven't watched Marquesas in a while, or even if you have watched it and just watched this, please go back and watch it. It's not as poor as it's sometimes talked about on the cesspool that is Survivor Reddit. Um, yeah, and until then, we'll be back here next Sunday, and stay tuned.